For lab 4, we had our bread lab, and during this lab, we made 3 different types of mixtures of breads with 2 different types of flour variations. For this first type of bread, the first mixture, I used cake flour, and we were instructed to undermix the bread. Undermixing is bad because it doesn't allow for everything to form together and make a solid mixture. I found that with undermixing, both the cake and the bread flour were very clumpy and had a bunch of rigid grooves at the top of the bread, and they also appeared to not rise as much as the rest of the mixtures. For this second mixture, we were instructed to mix it 25 extra strokes, and this meant that the mixture should be evenly dispersed and everything should be mixed together. With this, I found that it made the muffin or the bread very airy, and it also had a good amount of air pockets, and the bread wasn't too dense. And then lastly, for the cake flour, we were instructed to do 45 more strokes, which meant that this would make the batter very smooth and shiny, and it meant that it was overmixed. And so this is bad because it causes the gluten to form, and even overmixing can also cause the gluten strands to break, which could cause a very different texture and appearance in the muffin. These next 3 pictures are for my bread flour. I found that there was very similar results. The undermixed one was very clumpy, the perfectly mixed one had a good amount of air pockets and a good texture, and then the overmixed one had very large air pockets and also was very tough. For part B of this lab, we were looking at the effects of oils within bread making and how they would make the appearance, texture, and taste of the bread different than for each amount of oil that we placed in the mixture. For the mixture with no oil, I found that the bread did not rise as much as the other 2 muffins that we made, and it also was very tough to chew, and it was hard to break open or even cut open. For this second mixture, I thought it was very similar to the first ones. I also used cake flour for these muffins, and so this is pretty much the same thing as the perfectly mixed muffin from the first part of the lab. And like the first part, it was a good texture. It tasted very similar to a cake and with no flavor, and it had a good amount of air pockets within it to where it wasn't too dense, but it also wasn't too spongy. Lastly, this is the muffin that had 3 tablespoons of oil, which is double the first recipe, the first part of the lab had us putting in. And for this one, I actually liked the texture. It was a lot more airy and spongy, but you could tell the difference in how soft it was compared to the other mixtures. One main effect of oil when using it while baking is that it is able to keep the mixture while it's cooking, it's able to keep the moisture in, and it keeps the product from drying out, which you can tell in the first muffin that it was a lot more dry than the other 2. Overall, this lab showed me truly the effect that each ingredient has on the outcome of a baked good, and this includes cakes, it includes muffins, it includes bread. Everything is affected by each tiny ingredient, and in this case, we also saw that oil was very effective in changing the texture and the appearance, and we also saw that I didn't even realize that overmixing could cause a difference in the outcome of my product.